We might make a start. Good afternoon, welcome. As Colleen said, it feels silly to be doing a formal presentation with a crowd of this size, but Colleen can do what she likes. So some of you will have met Colleen Hirst before. Colleen's a clinical psychologist with over 40 years of experience. Am I allowed to say that?
Yeah, I started when I was 5. I was a child.
It has a practice out at Maryland's called Maryland's Counselling. It's got extensive experience in, well, so many different fields. You can read her bio on the website. But yeah, our family has personally benefited from Colleen's experience. I won't tell you in That's right.
Sorry.
That's right. You don't have to take the blame. Yeah, there's others that can do that. So yeah, Colleen's going to share with us a little bit about parenting, her tips and tricks, but also the bigger picture that's going on, particularly in the digital space at the moment, and the complications that creates around parenting, and particularly with a focus for the tween and teen stage of life, which is complicated enough already. But Colleen's going. That's right. Colleen's going to be sharing with us some of that, and hopefully you'll find it helpful. I'm sure you will, and we'll definitely be allowing some time for some questions. Colleen's running the show now, so I'll just hand it over to her, but if you might like to welcome her and thank her for coming this afternoon.
Thank you. So, I am a clinical psychologist and I'm in Western Sydney. Holy, what a drive to get used to. Parenting tween and teen. This is a big issue. It's a massive time of change. It's a massive time of change we all went through. The thing that we didn't go through was the massive changes that are happening every minute in our world. Okay, trying to get an up-to-date parenting book that's giving you wise advice about AI and ChatGPT and everything else that don't exist yet, because we're still racing to catch up. There's a great book by Jonathan Haidt called The Anxious Generation that came out at the beginning of last year. But it doesn't even talk about the impact of AI. And that's really recent in psychology. It's a book that's worth having a look at and worth reading. Vegetation as the second tip by Everything Dating. There's a family therapist, Hirst, doing all the work of Hirst, famous psychiatrist, about good parenting. We just need to be attuned and tap into our kids at least a third of the time. If you can make a third of the time, you're doing good. So let's take some of the stress off. We don't say another third should be trying to restore relationships that went poorly, but we really only allow one third, whatever. So it just takes some pressure off. It's just not humanly possible to be tuned into our kids 24/7. Now, the other scary thing that happens for us in this generation, we might not be able to be tuned into our kids 24/7, but guess what? The rest of the world can be. The internet will always be more available to your kids than you are. Now, this is something that happened to me when I was growing up.
Colleen, sorry, can I just interrupt you very briefly?
Oh, are we recording?
We are.
Oh,
yes.
Sorry.
So, you don't have to use the mic. I can bring if you want to stay down there, I can bring this down here.
Well, but I should stay here then. Sorry, it just feels weird.
Why don't we bring you forward? That way you're not so far away from everyone. But yes, if just for people, we are live streaming as well.
Sorry.
So no one's going to be able to hear you online without that mic. Thank you. Sorry.
Well, for everyone who is listening to the recording, you've just missed out on the most important bits. We don't have time to go back though, sorry. Look, before we actually go into this, I'd like you, maybe just in couples or in little groups, to talk about what is different. What do you think is different in parenting tweens and teens now than what it was like when you were being parented, when you were a tween or a teen? What's different? Is it the same? Are we facing the same issues? How is it different now? Just a couple of minutes, is there anything that we can think about that makes it a bit different? Go. All right, just a couple more minutes, then we can share our pearls of wisdom with the rest of the room. So, are there any differences? And if there are, what do you think they might be? Things go viral, full stop. There was no viral when I was a kid. Like, things go viral. Yeah, my stuff can go to the farthest corners of the earth. Yeah, that's a biggie. When I was growing up, get inside and do your homework. Get inside, go to your desk and do your work. Now, get out of your room, get outside and play. Yeah, that's a really big theme that's happening. Our kids now, it's being called, they have a screen-based childhood, where we had a play-based childhood. And even the generation before, we're in Gen A, so Gen Z and the millennials, they had more of a play-based childhood than what the current generation has. They are playing with their friends online. Yeah. Yep. Anything else that's different? That's a really big one. That's one of the biggest ones. We've got kids at all ages who are giving access to some stuff that's happening all around the world. You know, you can see people dying on a screen, you see dead bodies on a screen, you see wars on a screen, and we've got kids who are accessing that sort of information. Sorry? It's on the news. Yep. Yep. So we're so screen focused. It's a big thing. When I was growing up, we never got a TV till I was 8. And certainly didn't have TV 24/7. Now there's 1,000 channels 24/7 and kids can watch it in their bedroom on their phone. What else might be different then? Here's a big one, and then we will get into all the normal teen and tween stuff. But our kids, your teenagers, have been bathed in low-grade electromagnetic radiation from conception. Now, the jury's out what impact that's having. Maybe our brains have got super insulators that radiation doesn't affect them. Or maybe there's a very low-grade little shifts and changes that are happening in our heads, which is the field of a great deal of research. And I think it's better, rather than going, oh, don't be ridiculous, that wouldn't have an effect, or yes, our brains are fried. I think, radiation most probably does do something to tiny little fragile brains that are trying to wire up. So we've got that just sitting in the background as well, because of things going viral, because of access to everything going on in the world. Teens and tweens in this generation face 3 things that we probably didn't face before. One is this increase, this escalation in mental health problems in teenagers. And in the Anglosphere, all of the Western countries, there's been a steady increase, a really big jump between 2010 and 15, and then a steady increase ever since of depression, anxiety, suicidality, and increases in the rate of self-harm. Now, that's something that's a huge change. The other thing that our young people are dealing with is information processing. They're seeing stuff they just shouldn't be having access to. Plus, their little brains have to be critical thinkers to work out what's fake information and what's real information. And that's changing rapidly with AI. So our little brains trying to work out what's truth and what's fake is really difficult. And then the third area is social interactions. That instead of doing the play-based stuff, the face-to-face interaction, so much seems to be happening online and often with random people that you don't even know if they're real. And then trying to navigate same in-person peer relationships. And there's a really big question about social capacity for our kids growing up and how their rates of empathy, there seems to be research that that's declining. Their rates of being able to connect with other people in meaningful ways seems to be being compromised. So there's some big things that our kids are dealing with. So the rules of engagement haven't changed, that we need to be present. We need to build a relationship. We need to connect. That's the stuff that saves our kids. We need to know what they're doing, where they are, who their friends are. We need to have a voice and opinion in their life. And we need to do that while they're still in primary school. If you're trying to establish that when they're in high school, good luck. By the time they're in high school, their social interactions, their peer network is where they want to be connecting. So we want to build those bridges when they're young. Problem is that we get so busy. We've got so much stuff going on in our own lives. All right, let's move on so we don't run out of time. So there's our modern family. Has anyone seen this cartoon? It is so good. Mitchell's versus the machines, they save the world. But I just like that picture because that is what's happening. Everyone's on screens. Many of us, if not even all of us in this room, are addicted to some sort of technology. It's incredibly addictive. Phones are addictive. Online shopping is addictive. We just get drawn to our phones. In the waiting room at my work, there's 14 of us that work there, so the waiting room's got lots of people in it. Everyone's on their screens. Everyone's, they're doom scrolling stuff. So that's our modern world. So, but you're a role model. One of my granddaughters she was giving an example, I think it was last Christmas holidays. This is Mum. Go to your room, clean up your mess, make your bed, don't fight with your brother. Okay, now be Dad. I need a phone. I love my phone. I want another phone. Now she was 6 years old, seeing that this is Dad is so absorbed in his device. Nothing wrong with having devices. We need to have digital literacy. We need that. That's the modern world. But we're setting an example for our kids, and particularly up into middle teen years, you're their primary role model. You're the example that they want to follow. There's other influences, but if you maintain relationship, you're the main one. Let's have a look.
Rain again today. Dark clouds gather and fill the sky. Don't know how to talk to you, just know how to say goodbye.
It's quite powerful. Children see, children do. The verse that I had up there, train up your child in the way they should go. When they're old, they won't depart from it. Social psychology says that the spoken word, what we say, all of our preaching and all those lectures we give our kids carry about 10% of the message. Let's even say it's 20%, which it isn't, but let's say it's 20, which means then 90% of the message is who we are and how we live our life. How we cope in the traffic, how we cope when someone lets us down, how do we cope when there's a tax bill, how do we cope when someone doesn't serve us the right food in a restaurant, etc., etc. That's the training up that we're giving our kids. How do we deal with our frustration and our anger? How do we deal with relationship issues? How do Mum and Dad deal with each other? And, crazy Aunt Bertha that you never want in the house. What messages are we teaching our kids? And we all have an Aunt Bertha. Maybe you're the Aunt Bertha. Okay, here's a summary of parenting. We have to be flexible and adaptable, not rigid and authoritarian, while setting safe, clear and appropriate boundaries and keeping the lines of reciprocal communication open in the context of the challenges of technology and the normal developmental changes, neurological, hormonal and social, whilst imparting the wisdom of how to be a good person and how to build a good future. There you go. That's parenting tweens and teens. We can all go now. It's really hard work. It's really hard work. There's big challenges there. And we live in a culture that's pulling at us as well. All of these things, all of the tech stuff isn't just pulling at our kids, it's pulling at us as well. I am going to talk about, we're in a church, I'm going to talk about a couple of Bible verses that I think are really important. Our kids are in danger of being isolated because they can be seduced into a screen. Very first not good in the Bible, in all of creation. God made everything. It was good, 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 good. Trees and mountains and sky and darkness and sun and moon. The first not good. It's not good to be alone. Now, I know that was talking about Adam and Eve, but it's not good to be alone. Given all of our technology, the loneliness epidemic is sweeping the world in plague amounts, proportions. And again, I'm talking in the Western world. The research isn't, we don't have the same sort of access in third world countries, but we need to stay connected to our kids. I love this Bible verse. So if you want to know how to do good parenting, Paul actually says this is what good parenting looks like. I need to encourage, comfort, and urge our kids to live lives worthy of God. There's a great social psychology parenting model called Circle of Security, which isn't based on this, but it could be. So this is how we need to be connecting with our kids, not just gaming with them, not just watching TV with them. How do I encourage, comfort, and urge them to live lives worthy of God? Circle of Security talks about, I need to provide a secure base. I want to be there with you as you're learning to catch those little lizards, as you're learning how to play netball. I want to be there while you're getting brave to do your little dance on the stage. And all the time I'm watching over you, I'm tuned in, I'm delighting in you, I'm saying well done. You catch me smiling at you, you catch me celebrating, you hear me telling other people how wonderful you are. And at the same time, I provide a safe haven. So when you screw up, when you make a mistake, when you get scared, when you don't know how to do it, when you fail, when you get a bad grade, they're not being told what happened to that other 5 marks. Why didn't you get 100%? So I want to be able to encourage my kids. I want to encourage them to have a go, and I want to comfort them. And that's what this model is about, providing encouragement and comfort. It could be that verse in Thessalonians. It isn't, but so much wisdom in the psych world comes from the Bible. Funny about that. And all the while being bigger, stronger, wiser, and kind. Now, what does that mean? If we have a look right back in Genesis again, when Adam and Eve first screwed up, massively screwed up. Imagine if you were given the Garden of Eden and everything you could possibly want, having a pretty good life, and Adam and Eve blew it. They ate from the tree. They did the wrong thing. They did the wrong thing. And then God came walking in the garden in the cool of the evening. Now, what was his parenting style? Here's the pro forma for parenting. It's the first time his kids have screwed up. Here's the pro forma for parenting. I think we can rely on this one. Did he go, you bloody kids, get out here. Who's eaten from the tree? I'm sick of it. After everything I've done for you, I asked you to do one thing, just one thing. Is that God's model of parenting? No, he's God, so he knew where they were. But he comes into the garden and he says, hey, where are you? Where are you? Where are you? He reaches out. He has a soft startup. Good pro forma for good parenting. Where are you? And they say, we were ashamed. We did the wrong thing. So we were hiding because we thought you wouldn't love us anymore. I'm paraphrasing, he didn't say that. But that whole sense of we didn't think that your love would be big enough to still love us, so we had to hide from you. Same for our kids. Come back, safe haven. I love you. Might not like the stuff you've done, but I love you and I will always love you. So the soft startup. God says, where are you? Who told you that this makes you no good to me? Who told you that this will make me not love you? Then the third one, the consequences. Now you're in your room. Now you're grounded for the weekend. Now there's no TV. Now you're out of the garden. So I think that's a really good pro forma. If you want to build a relationship with your kids, do the soft startup. You don't let anyone off the hook. God didn't let anyone off the hook. But he certainly came back to the safe haven. He certainly was there as that secure base and safe haven. Where are you? Come back to me. You don't need to hide. I still love you. This behavior doesn't change my love. Now, I'm a normal parent, and I possibly maybe once or twice have yelled at my kids, maybe. But remember, we only have to do 1/3, maybe 2/3 at best of attunement in our good parenting. Sometimes we are going to blow it. That doesn't mean we go groveling to our kids, but sometimes we are going to blow it, and we might say, I'm sorry that I yelled at you, but you're still grounded for a week. So sometimes we're going to have the parenting around the other way. We're going to yell and then try and make amends. But I think that's a pretty good pro forma for good parenting, right there in the very, very beginning of the Bible. So I love this model. But remember, we want to be bigger, stronger, wiser, and kind. And I think that's kind of how God treats us. Like, it's not a biblical model, but oh my goodness, so much of it could come straight out of there. There's another thing in terms of mental health that talks about safe reciprocal relationships, the foundation of good mental health. Now, this is by a guy called Bessel van der Kolk, talked about this. If we can do this in our home, if we can build these safe relationships in our home and stay connected to our kids, the research says they're less likely to step into crime. They're less likely to end up substance abusing. They're less likely to have bullying behaviour. They're less likely to be violent. Oh my goodness, better than any program, better than any group you can go to. If we can build that safe reciprocal relationship, then that's a massive protective factor for the future for our kids. Oh, we needed someone for the role play. I'm joking. Welcome. All right. Now we're going to talk. Oh no, I was kidding. Sorry, but if you really, well, it was good exercise. Get the blood pumping. Thank you. All right. Let's have a look then. Technology. You know, the very first international congress looking at internet addiction, the first one ever was in 2014. You know, the very first internet gaming clinic in Australia, when do you think that popped? 2022. Can you see how recent this stuff is? So we're all doing catch up, trying to work out how to manage. You'll know anyone who's got an internet gaming addiction, they tend to be very violent, they're very dysregulated, they're very moody, they smash holes in walls, and these are really common features of internet addiction disorder. And that popped into, it's in our diagnostical and statistical manual, not that that matters. So some of us are going to have kids of our own, or nieces and nephews, or children of families where there's hardcore internet addictions and gaming addictions happening. The gaming addiction is quite tricky, particularly for this generation, Gen Alpha, born 2013 to now. First generation ever, when we look at those generation cohorts, that was born in the digital age, where their entire life, smartphones, Snapchats, iPads, all of this stuff has been in existence. They're the very first digital natives, very first kids growing up with monitors in their cribs, their cots, where things talk to them and mum and dad can see them. This generation, nobody actually really knows what it's going to look like. We don't have to go through all of this, but this is how recent all this stuff is. So we don't know the impact that it's having on brains. We're all trying to work it out. The impact that it's having on social development, the impact that it's having on just personal development in terms of empathy and qualities as a human being. So, and Chat GPT has popped in 2020, but now AI is just causing all sorts of issues. So we've got kids who are trying to navigate all of this. So we've got this advent, and we need to be helping our kids be really in touch with the content they're looking at, who they're contacting. I think I was telling someone Roblox, there's a pedophile room. Like, I'd read about that. So I was talking to these kids about, you should be careful, pedophile room. Oh, yeah, we know about that. Old news. Mum and dad just told us stay out of there. We just don't go in there. So, oh my goodness. Do we know that? I didn't know that, and nor did I realise it was so well known among some young teens. So there's a whole lot of grooming that goes on. we need to be aware of who the kids are contacting. We need to be aware of what's the content, and you need to monitor your kids' conduct. You need to be aware of when your kids are bullying. You need to be aware of when your kids are putting up funny posts and photos of other people. We also need to be aware of all the sexting that's going on. Did you know it's a crime for your teen to put a naked photo up of themselves? It's a crime for your teen to put naked booby shots, which a lot of kids are getting sucked into doing. Up until now, kids have been able to have multiple Facebook accounts. So you can see their main one, but you don't see their other ones. Now it'll be interesting with the changes that come on the 10th of December this year, where you've got to be 16. The problem with it, there's no onus on parents or kids. The onus is on the service provider. So Facebook can get sued, you won't. Kids won't. Facebook is the one who'll get into trouble. Reddit will get into trouble. X will get into trouble. Instagram will get into trouble. So the jury's out, but what we need to know is that it's illegal. So if your kids are 13 and under, it's illegal to let them get onto some of this social media stuff. So Jonathan Haidt, he talks about the new crisis, and I mentioned this. Conversations now, so much of it is around smartphones, social media, gaming, and we need to be up to speed with what our kids are all talking to each other about. And that synchronized international increase that's happening. It didn't just happen, it's happening. And we seem to have more girls are being impacted by social media that need to fit in, that need to be smart enough, pretty enough, have big enough lips, have had a nice pair of shoes. And boys, it's more around that gaming addiction stuff. But of course, there's crossover to both. But this sense of just not being good enough. I mean, who can compete with the world? Who can actually compete with what's going on out there? So we need to be having these good conversations and encouraging our kids to put their phones down, to put their screens down, and we need to do that. We need to put our screens down when we're at home. So yeah, the screen-based childhood is replacing the play-based childhood. Now, this research is really affecting anyone born after 1995, which means, you know, they were, say 2010 is when these increases were starting to be noticed. So it's kind of the generation of teenagers right now. These kids are the ones in the firing line. And we're still all trying to work out where we sit with all the digital stuff. Any comments about this? Because now, after that happy introduction, we're just going to talk about some of the normal teen stuff that goes on. Any comments about that? I'm not trying to be Nelly naysayer. I've got a smartphone. You know, we've all got laptops. We're all tapped into the internet. There is no choice. We have to be. So I'm not saying don't. Of course, that could be it. That doesn't account for the increase in death. So it doesn't account for the increase in self-harm. But certainly it could be. All social media, people know. Jonathan Haidt talks about a thing. I've seen people with Tourette's. It's mainly a boy thing. But some of the research went online. So all of a sudden there was this sweep of kids developing Tourette's in Scandinavia or somewhere, until there had to be some other posts going out that it's, you know, it's not that common. And then the rates of Tourette's went down. So definitely the more we know about it, that's going to increase, that's, you know, all our self-diagnosing, but also some of the testing. I don't know, testing for anxiety and depression is not that hard to know what that is. Oh, sure. Some of those more hardcore issues, yes. So the jury's out, because there's an increase in ASD diagnoses. Is that because there's more autism spectrum disorder issues, or is it because we're getting better at diagnosing it? Yeah, the jury's still out. But yeah, certainly some of those things. Are we getting better at testing? Because a lot of the testing has changed as well. I mean, I think Australia, we win the prize. We're the ADHD hotspot in the world. Are we? But we are. So what's that about? Is that because we're all forgetful and hyper, super energizer bunnies, or are we overdiagnosing? That's right.
There's always been all the kids, and there's always been children who are very different. And I think also to the years ago, kids tried hard to fit in. If you were different, if you did have autism, and you weren't madly on the spectrum like they are now, you fit in there because you work hard to fit in. Whereas now people just accept, oh, I'm different, so you have to accept me.
So some of those disorders, I think definitely the jury's out. Are we picking up better? Are we? Is there an increase? But I think the issue around the anxiety and depression and suicidality, that, anxiety and depression are the two most common mental health issues in Australia. And so to see our kids increasing in those numbers, that's scary. We're up to now 9 suicides a day in Australia. And the biggest age group is from 15 to 25, I think it is. And that suicide typically is around, I feel alone, I feel depressed, no one cares. So depression and anxiety are really tied up with that one. Again, we need to stay connected with our kids because those numbers are increasing. So it's not just like today, 9 people. And of every suicide, of a suicide attempt, 30% aren't successful. So, oh my goodness. So there's all these other folk who are also trying. So we need to stay connected to our kids, build relationship is the great big take-home message, because a screen is an easy babysitter. A screen is an easy way to keep the kids quiet. I'm not saying don't do it. Turn the telly on when you're cooking dinner. Just don't leave them at their screens all weekend because you don't know what's happening on those screens. I don't allow YouTube in my house. I don't want my grandkids touching that because lots of things have been snuck into some of those social media platforms that are not good for children to look at, even kids' YouTube. Okay, am I scaring you all?
I think society is actually nowadays more up and down. Everybody has to have a qualification or once to go to school at 15 and got an apprenticeship. You do what you like. Nowadays, kids don't know what they want. You have to go and do year 12. You can't drop out of 15 to an apprenticeship. You have to go to year 12.
Yeah, the rules are changing.
And it's just constantly say, I can't stand this person. Why can't I actually get a living and have understanding why? I think lack of understanding is really headed in the right. What's driving this suicide? There's no definite plan for their future.
Yeah, there's lots of social changes that are happening. Let's look at these 4 categories. So between 12 and 13, that's our tween years, and puberty's starting younger and younger, sometimes as young as 9 now. So the brain stops growing. Our brain has kind of hit its size by then. And so they're just starting with their abstract thinking, just starting to be able to have opinions, autonomous morality, working out good and bad. Our tweens are just starting to get there. Veil is lifted from their eyes. They see you for the first time. It's not a pretty sight. They're starting to step back from you being their main social contact. And that's supposed to happen. Kids are supposed to grow and go. So we really want to be, I'll say it 1,000 times, consolidating connection in their primary years. Then we hit the 12 to 15. Now, this is where kids are questioning, am I normal? It's all about, I'm getting pimples and hair in weird places and bodies changing and hands and feet are growing faster than arms and legs. I can put on 10 kilos in 12 months. I can grow 10 centimeters in 12 months. So kids feel awkward. They feel cumbersome. They're just starting to apply some critical thinking. So do not make fun of them. Do not ridicule them if they're all starting to look gangly and they start to lose some of their speech process. So how was your day? So what'd you do? Same. So what else was going on? Nothing. So this is part of this developmental stuff that's happening in our prefrontal cortex. It's true. They've got tumbleweeds. That's in trying to put those sentences together, their brain is elsewhere. So remember the slow startup? Where are you? It's probably a really good question. Where are you? I'm still here. Let's connect. Because our kids aren't just being rude. We went through it. Sometimes you might be going, Mum and Dad, leave me alone. But a lot of the time, how was your day? Fine. What'd you do? Same. Anything different? Nah. And that's just where their heads are. They're not engaging in that process. Then we start shifting into the mid-teen years. Now, this is where kids are wanting to connect with their peer group. The peer group is becoming their primary social framework. They're starting to step back from mum and dad. It's supposed to happen. Kids are supposed to do that. They're supposed to grow and go. So their peer group becomes fiercely the primary interest for them. And in the advent of social media, that's really tricky because they're looking at the rules of how to fit in and what to wear and how to do their hair and what games they should be playing and what music to listen to and how they should be behaving. So they're so keen to become independent, but they're like en masse, this uniform of identical people wearing the same clothes and singing the same, listening to the same song, saying, I am an individual. So our kids are wanting to conform, but the problem now, they've got access to so much stuff out there. So these changes are normal. And then the later teens, 18 to 25, if you've traveled well through the turbulent years, typically are the 15 to 18 years. If you travel well through that cute little person that you knew when they were 12 and 13, that person comes back to earth. So if you've traveled well and haven't done warfare during the 15 to 18 years, you will get your child back at 19, give or take, 18 to 25. That's when the person has arrived, the fullness of development. It's hard for much change to be happening after that. Like I could learn to speak a foreign language, I could do it, but it would be really hard. If I was wanting to learn a language, the best years are between 9 and 18, the golden years of learning, then that's the time to be learning stuff. But our brains are pretty well set, 18 to 25, and this is where people are thinking, where am I going? What does my future hold? So this is what's normal for our kids. So the summary, ability to reproduce, this starts kicking in now in the tween years. The establishment of identity, that's what this whole journey has been about, and it's massively being influenced by social media. And the formal commencement of logical, rational, reasoned thought, which starts in the tween years, and hopefully by 25, I've got a brain and I know how to use it. The problem for our kids is they're accessing so much misinformation on the internet now. I find it frustrating. In the news the other week, lawyers in Australia, some city in Australia, were banned from using AI to be quoting cases because they have to quote cases in their legal stuff because they were getting fake information. They were quoting cases that didn't exist. Why are people doing that? How do we know what's true and what isn't? So if these solicitors, lawyers, barristers were getting it wrong, what about our kids? How can we help them developing that formal, logical, critical, reasoned thinking? Can we see it's different than when we were growing up? It all just feels so hard to be staying on top of all the challenges that our young people are having to deal with. One of the important things with our teens is that they have an alternate social group, an alternate peer group. So they'll have their friends at school, but if they're being bullied, they need another group. Maybe they've got their soccer team, maybe they've got their youth group, maybe they've got their group of cousins. We need to be giving our kids a real time and place, face-to-face opportunity to connect with other human beings. So I can't stress that enough, whether it's soccer, dancing, swimming, netball, youth group, kids need an alternate peer group that they can connect with because that's giving them a reflected sense of self. Those kids at school think I'm a geek and dumb, but these kids think I'm cool and they like collecting rocks too. So we need to give our kids alternative groups. The other thing we need is giving kids a place where they can have responsibility, where they have the opportunity to contribute, where they have that sense of, yay, I did that. And they need to have jobs at home, but maybe helping out in the netball team, helping out in the youth group, being responsible for things as they're developing all of their capacity for critical thinking. That's more difficult for the subsequent siblings. The eldest child often gets those roles just because they're the eldest and they're forever the eldest. And the youngest kids can often feel like they're forever the tail end Charlie tag along. So we need to be really mindful, giving each of our kids jobs and responsibility that's going to help them grow to the adult platform. not feeling less than. Now, that's a challenge when you've got, 2, 3, 4 kids. It's very easy for the first one to end up with that responsibility. For the subsequent ones, maybe not so much. We've got to be intentional about it. So adolescence, this is all normal. Novelty seeking. They get into planking and they take drugs they shouldn't take. Adolescence is a time in our life we're 30% more likely to have an injury in our adolescence, mainly boys, but not just boys. 30% more likely to end up with a broken leg, a broken arm, in hospital because someone dared you to take how many beers could you drink or eat that slug or try these drugs. Like, kids are going to be doing a lot more dangerous stuff. We were also in that way. We're immortal. They're impulsive. They just want to risk take. And what would you know? So that novelty seeking is pretty normal for our kids. And so we need to be giving them fun things to be doing their novelty seeking. Let's get you singing. Let's get you painting the bathroom. Let's engage, not just leave them randomly to be out there doing things. Where is mum and dad when these kids are doing these dangerous things and they're 13, 14, 15-year-old? They need mum and dad to be there on their team. Social engagement, we've talked about that. We need to have lots of different peer groups. We need to know their friends' parents, have people around for a barbecue, go along to church, connect. And they're going to have increased emotional intensity. They're going to be moody. It's not helpful if you get moody back. Then we're just doing warfare. Don't you speak to me that way. Well, you're the one who always yells at me. I'm the mother. You'll do as I tell you. Why should I? Don't do that. Don't do that. Kids are going to be moody. It's okay to say, I don't speak to you that way, but you have to not speak to them that way. I don't speak to you that way. You don't speak to me that way. When you've calmed down, we'll have the conversation then. So let's be mindful. Kids are going to be moody. We don't let them get away with stuff. Remember the pro forma for good parenting way back in Genesis. Where are you? Who said you're no good? But there is a consequence. So that's the pro forma. I think it's a good one to follow. And they can be really creative. Our teens, give them a chance. They can come up with such good ideas. I love having teenagers in my life. They can do Canva, they do the flyers, they design everything, they fix my phone, they solve computer problems. It's fantastic. I can't wait for my grandkids. In 5 minutes, they'll be building computers. So they're innovative and creative, and sometimes they come up with dumb ideas, but sometimes if we support them, they can do some incredibly creative, wonderful things. We've got a thing with all of us. This is us as well, our self-esteem. Our self-esteem tends to be based on performance plus other people's approval. That's you, me, and everybody, and our kids. If they're doing things, then they want to get their peers' approval. So we want to be that network where they're doing stuff and we can celebrate. We don't want that being in their peer group where who can eat more slugs and then drink so many beers and then they all get praised for being so wild and radical. So that's how they can build their self-esteem if they end up in the wrong networks. So we need to be there praising up their performance, giving them opportunities to excel, set that up, put them on rosters at church, give them opportunities to excel, and then praise them up for job well done. That builds self-esteem, and that helps people to feel like members of that peer group. Rather than being always treated as kids, then they'll find that support somewhere else. Any questions? Because now we're going to talk about our brains. Okay, so what's happened to my brain? Well, lots happens to my brain. Our brains are pretty clever, but they grow from the bottom up and from the back to the front, which means the absolute last bit of our brain to develop is this one, the prefrontal cortex, which solves problems and makes decisions. Our teens, very bad at this. It's a very rudimentary system. So they can be stubborn, have poor impulse control, all that risk-taking behaviour. They feel indestructible, immortal, and they don't want to talk to you about stuff. They might have a lot of knowledge, but they don't have the wisdom that goes with that.
They can correct you on how you don't know technology or how you didn't know how to fix that thing. They know stuff because their brains, remember, their brains are working twice the speed of ours until they're about 18. So they know stuff, but we have the wisdom, in theory, hopefully we've got a bit of wisdom to know what to do with that information. So they're not good at delaying gratification, they're not good at waiting for things, and they're going to be more argumentative because they don't always understand what your reasoning is, because they're just very egocentric, very focused on what they know, and often they feel they know more than you. How are we going? We're staying with this? There's a lot of information. So mental health. Now, these stats are outdated because we don't have any up-to-date ones, but about 14% of young people, I think this was around 2017, about 14% of 4 to 17-year-olds are going to have mental health problems. Not just having a down day, but having some significant issues where they might go to see a psychologist, they might go to see a psychiatrist. Now, what's that about? Is God's design flawed and broken? Like, did he miss something? Was he not paying attention? How come people have these mental health problems? Well, it seems to be that about 30 to 40% of a mental health issue seems to be genetically in there. So 30 to 40%. So what's the other? 60 to 70% is environment. So it's the stuff that happens around us that can trigger that predisposition to whatever it is that's going on. So it isn't so Aunt Bertha, she might have some sort of mental health issue. Now, I could inherit that from her, that genetic predisposition. But if I've got a family that's doing all this stuff that we're talking about, that reduces the chance of that actually becoming a significant issue. I'm not saying it will cancel it, but it reduces that. So most of our mental health stuff is environment and what goes on around us, which is really interesting. 50% of mental health issues for all of us pop before we're 14 and about 75% by the age of 25. So if you make 25 and that Aunt Bertha's OCD or schizophrenia hasn't popped, chances of that happening for you are pretty small, pretty slight. What do you think? Why do we have 14%? So many people with mental health issues at such a young age. What do you think? Oh, yes, insecure attachments. Yep. Look, that's interesting. That comes all the way back to connection. About half of the population have got secure attachments, which means I feel seen, I feel valued, I feel safe with you. That circle of security that we talked about, I've got the secure base to check out the world, and I've got someone who's safe haven for me. About 50% of us have insecure attachment, which is actually quite a lot. And that means, so that half of insecure, half of them tend to be really anxious. People, I don't know if you're going to like me. I don't know if I'm good enough. I always fail. I'm going to do whatever you want so you'll be my friend so I can fit in, because I feel like I've never fitted in. Mum and dad never had time for me. They always yelled at me. So we've got half of that second half are anxious. And then the other half tend to be avoidant. Nothing good ever happens. My dad always just came home and just used to beat us. Mum and dad both worked long hours. I just was on the internet. I don't need people in my world to survive. So we can have those, we should all have secure attachment, but half of us have insecure attachment, and that is directly because of life experience. That's got nothing to do with genetics or chemical makeup. So half of us have attachment relationship problems because of typically relationship issues in our childhood. So yes, that's part of the reason. That was a long answer. Any other comments? Why do you think we're seeing? Sorry?
Social things like alcohol and drug taking from the parents' point of view, because there's nothing that you've gone back through the industry.
Yep. Substance abuse. So when we've got parents who are abusing or neglecting their children because of whatever the addiction issue is, and the addiction issue could be screens. When we've got parents that are abusing or ignoring kids, that's going to impact their sense of attachment and belonging and worth. Okay. So I think I've said that. Oh, the other thing, when we've got kids who have worries. Some kids are going to have separation anxiety disorder when they're little. That typically is worse for kids over 8. Now, when COVID hit, for a lot of kids who were a little bit socially anxious, and then they got to avoid having to go to school, and then some of those kids dropped out of going to school, and they had to do, and that's a sad thing again for this generation, where all the research has said kids should never have been taken out of school. That school should never have stopped. That school was actually a safe place for kids to be. It's not particularly helpful for all those kids who dropped out of the education system. And there's a whole cohort who got lost. And some of them got sucked into gaming and got caught up in all sorts of unhelpful things. And we're talking in Australia. We're talking here, a lot of those kids got lost. So, but anxiety is going to be more common from around 8, if we think about that, critical thinking is starting to happen, where I'm starting to have opinions, starting to work out why things are happening in the world. And part of the other problem with all of the social media, kids are seeing how scary and awful the world is, and all of the fake media as well that's happening. And I've already said that. Suicide. Okay, so relationship is what matters. If we look at all the scary stuff that I've just talked about, and there's a lot of scary stuff, the most important thing, the number one parenting strategy, the thing that can change the trajectory of your child's life is believing in them and maintaining a healthy relationship with them. Now, that research comes from all different spheres in psychology. If I can stay connected, then my kids have a much better chance of a good future. Now, we've got families where mums and dads have separated, mums and dads have divorced, someone has passed away. So does that mean that they don't count? No, not true. There's this great research that was done in Hawaii. It was an 18-year longitudinal study looking at kids whose came from troubled families. So mums and dads either in jail, drug and alcohol problems, death, divorce, violence, all sorts of social issues. They tracked these kids, and what they found was that 1/3 did crash and burn. When mum and dad weren't available, they did crash and burn. 1/3 rose above and just became stunning life achievers, and the other third, just did okay. So 2/3 did okay. So the researchers were quite puzzled by this, because common sense said, if mum and dad are not there all the time, then surely the kids are doomed. So what the research came out with, and it's not a Christian study, actually said 2 factors made a difference for people. One was having at least one person in their life who saw them, who believed in them, who connected with them. Let's think that circle of security. Let's think an adult in their life being bigger, stronger, wiser, kind, and saying, I see you, I believe in you. And it didn't have to be, never was the social worker, the psychologist, or the school counsellor. It was often the lady in the canteen, or the soccer coach, or the family on the corner. So it was people without a reason to have to do it who just said, you are pretty awesome and I believe in you. Now, that was one thing. The other thing that people said made the difference was a belief that they were made for a purpose and that there was a God who actually loved them. Not going to church, but that there was a God. What I find profound in this study, and it was a woman called Emmy Werner wrote the research, not a Christian, but when you look at, when Jesus was asked, what's the greatest commandment? To believe in the Lord your God with all your heart, mind and soul, to love the Lord your God with all your heart, mind and soul, to love your neighbour as yourself. That was the outcome from that research. If I've got God and other people, then I can make it. I can do it. So I would say part of your mandate is to definitely be that for your kids, and to think about the opportunities in your world when you can be that for other kids, that opportunity To believe in someone can change the trajectory of someone's life. Could you just turn to the person next to you and just identify who, and maybe it's your parents, ideally it's your parents, but if not, who was the person or the people in your world that believed in you, and what difference did that make for you? Let's come back together. Did anyone have someone in there growing up that made a difference, that made you feel seen and loved, that made you feel worthwhile? Someone that believed you could do it, even when you screwed up, still believed in you? Anyone have that person? Hopefully mum and dad, not necessarily mum and dad though. You don't have to say anything. Does anyone feel brave enough? I'm just interested if anyone's person wasn't mum and dad. That's all.
I grew up with my friends and their dad, their parents were divorced, and he used to get the boys to play music and brass bands and stuff. He would drive them all over the country pretty much to go to competitions. I got to tag along, sort of like shower snackers for dinner, which was a good thing, but I thought it was pretty good at the time. But we do like rehearsals pretty much every night of the week in a different town, Victoria.
How cool.
It was good, yeah. He worked day shifts in the milk factory, so we just played school and all that. At his house.
Maybe not so cool, but you know.
Well, he knew about it. He never let us get.
But connection and belonging. Yes. Thank you. That's powerful.
Most of it was still be our own people.
Mm.
He didn't tell us the truth at school.
Are you two connected? So is he all right? Thank you. So yeah, it doesn't have to. Hopefully for our kids, we are that person, but it might not be. Exactly what you've said. And it's okay, because I think this is important. Jesus grew up in a blended family. The intact nuclear family is not the gold standard. It's a very good standard, but it's okay if someone's been fostered, adopted, and all the different various constellations of family. It's what happens inside, except for wagging school. It's what happens inside the family that makes a difference. Anyone else? And then we'll move on. Okay, a couple of we'll have a look at some of these, because now we're coming down to the simple things of how do we do the parenting thing. And I'm happy to field some questions around this. But there's a couple of strategies that I think are really useful, and I've used them when my kids were growing up. One is called connect and redirect. And I think it applies at every age. But I want to hear what's going on for you. Yes, that does sound really frustrating that you didn't make the team. It's really sad you didn't get invited to the party. And your child is actually, they're having an issue. Teenagers slam the door, whatever they're doing. I want to connect. And then I want to say, so what can you do about that? Or what's going to be helpful? So that connecting, I want to hear you. I want you to know I'm hearing you. I'm on your page. Sometimes parents go, well, that's ridiculous. Well, it's actually called empathy. All that is the skill of empathy. And I use it every day in my life, particularly in my psychology practice. I want to be on your page. I want you to know I'm on your page. I might not agree with it. I might not fully understand it, but I want you to know I'm on your page. Whatever is happening for you as my teenager, I'm on your page and I want to talk to you about it. I want to hear about it. If you come in with I can't believe you drank that alcohol at the party, this age that you are, you shouldn't have done that. Is your teen going to talk to you about anything else? Are they going to tell you about what's happening? So if they're 13 and they drank some alcohol, well, no, that's not okay. But remember the slow startup? Okay, where are you? Let's sit down and talk about this. Let's see, I still love you, but let's talk about why that might not be okay. Then your child is way more likely to come and talk to you about their friend who's pressuring them for sex, or someone else who's saying smoke this bong, or someone else who's saying let's wag school, someone else who's doing bad behavior. You want to connect so you can redirect. And that connecting is I hear you, I see you, this sounds tough, it sounds awful, it sounds frustrating, it sounds so devastating, it's challenging, etc., etc., etc. Let's talk about it. What can we do about that? The other thing that's really important, I like this skill as well. It's called name it to tame it. Now, that just means I want to hear what you've got to say, even though it might be so boring and repetitive, and I'm trying not to fall asleep as you're telling me about that thing that happened in PE today. But you want to be there. Don't glaze over. Don't tune out. Don't be looking on your phone. We need to hear what our young people have to say. Otherwise, they're not going to tell us. So name it to tame it. What is that? That is called trauma counselling. Sometimes people just need to be able to unload what's causing them grief. And it might be some silly thing, some social media thing. It might be kids calling them names. It might be that someone, chuck their pencil case on the floor. And, we don't want to be saying, oh, I'll tell you what a real problem is. That's nothing. If only that's all that happened to me today. That's not helpful, because if we can't name it to tame it with our kids, they're going to stop talking to you. They'll go and post it online somewhere. And if we can't do the connecting and redirecting, these are kind of basic building blocks for any sort of good counselling, for any sort of good therapy. If you went and did some counsellor training, these are skills that you're going to learn. Effective listening, you're going to learn these things so you can build rapport with folk when they're struggling. Let's use these skills with our kids. It comes under a model called raising emotionally intelligent children. So how do I help my kids to organise their feelings, to describe what's going on for them in a safe place where no one's going to laugh at them, no one's going to tell them they shouldn't feel that way. We don't stop there though. Let's organise what are our options, what can we do, because I'm on team you and I'm going to help you with your critical thinking and problem solving. We are going to work it out. So those two skills are really helpful. The other thing that we need, and here's a problem, because kids need to know how to budget. Kids need to know how to use money. Does anyone have cash anymore? How are we teaching kids how to save? So one of my daughters has got money boxes and they put literal cash in, and then the kids have to count it out to go and buy something. I think even with earn and return bottles, I think you just get vouchers for shops. Like, it's really hard to actually teach kids the value of money, because you just have this plastic card and you just go bing and you get whatever you want. And there's been an increase in kids stealing off mum and dad because they want to buy more tokens for their games and they just get the credit card. Bing, one client was $300. They got a refund from, I forget the game now, but they did get a refund. But our kids aren't, how do we teach them the value of money when everything is it's all online? There's no cash actually changing hands. So that's an important one, that we find ways to teach our kids value of money. I like that my daughter's doing real-time cash and coins, dollars and coins, so that the kids actually have to count something out and work out how much more money they need till they can buy that thing, not just bing. Another thing that kids have to have in the house is they have to have responsibilities and jobs. Now, sometimes it might be it's just easier to do it myself, but we need to be teaching our kids it's time management, it's self-efficacy, it's responsibility, it's that sense of belonging and contributing. So kids need to have jobs, and they don't get locked in a closet for 5 days if they didn't take the rubbish out. We have to have reasonable consequences, but kids have to have, we had rosters for our kids. Everyone had to take turns, set the table, clear the table, wash the dishes, dry the dishes. Like, everyone had jobs, and we had a rule, because this is way before all this, so many screens, that no one could turn on any TV show or do a recreational thing, and I had 5 kids, until everyone had done all their jobs. So my kids became policing of each other. Come on, you have to do it. No, you haven't finished. Put the dishes away. So our kids need to start this in primary school, and they need to carry it on. And they don't get a get out of jail free card because they've got uni and tennis and swimming and dancing and youth group. They don't get a get out of jail free card. They still have to find a way to be contributing in the household. The other thing is that we're raising a very privileged generation, because there is so much stuff out there. So our teens need to have this reinforced for them before they launch into adulthood, and just assume the world is there for them. And they want to get a job where they're the CEO, not the intern, because social media says so. We're all supposed to be pretty, rich, popular, and not work, but just have lots and lots of money. Now, some of these messages are also coming through to our kids. Be involved, support, family rules. How many people have meals together every night with your teens? Having meals together? Here's something, the evening meal is disappearing because everyone's busy. Everyone's busy. I'm not saying don't have activities, but we need to have time to connect. We need family rituals, particularly as our teens are stepping out of the family circle. They're supposed to. They're trying to find their identity in their peer networks. But we still want to have those times when they connect, when they're home with us. I'm probably going to stop there and see if there's any questions, anything specifically. Other thing, our teens need 8 to 9 hours sleep every night because their brains are doing massive wiring up. There's a lot of work going on inside their heads. Any questions? I've just flooded you all with so much information.
Normal is hearing all of it. It's great, it's wonderful, absolutely, totally agree. And also believe that it's based on research and that it's based on truth and fact. But then in the heat of the moment, when there's dysregulation and we're dysregulated, doing that like calm, collected connection with them before the redirection is just so hard.
Look, that's a really good point. It's very easy because we're all so busy as well. There's just so much going on and so many demands that when our kids are clicking, when our teens are being stroppy and talking back to us, that can press buttons for us. In that circle of security model, it calls it shark music, which talks about our stuff from our childhood and how easy things are to get triggered. And now we're starting to get activated the way our parents maybe yelled at us, and now we're repeating some of that behavior. So the challenge for us is to deal with our stuff, not in that moment. And like I said, we're all normal human beings. But if I've got stuff from my childhood, if I've got things around anxiety, if I've got stuff where I'm feeling attacked or insecure, I've got some anxious attachment, then I'm very vulnerable to having a playground argument with my 13-year-old. And it feels like we're equal and opposite forces, when in actual fact, I am the boss and you shall go to your room. And we'll finish this conversation later. So they don't have the same capacity to switch off as we do. Well, hopefully we have the capacity to go, enough. And if we don't feel like we've got it right now, we need to practice that. We need to stop, because we say the truth comes out when we're angry. That's not true. Mean, rubbish, hurtful, nasty things come out when we're angry. So if you pursue an argument with a teen, then you're going to regret it later, and you're going to have to apologize and make peace for that disagreement. So it's better to stop. I need time to breathe. I'm not continuing this conversation. That happened, I can remember this one time. One of my daughters was being very, very stroppy about a particular thing, and she said to me, "You are such a bitch, Mom." She's the only one of my kids who's ever sworn at me, and I was just, I thought, I'm just not going to entertain this conversation. I said, I shall talk to you later, and went on getting dinner ready. Tears. Anyway, probably 15, 20 minutes went by. She came out and said, "Oh, do you need any help getting dinner ready?" And I was, yes, I need help getting dinner ready. So for our kids, remember, their brains are messy. Their hippocampus, the memory storage thing, is not grabbing these assaults on person. They're not a moral injury for our teen. They're not feeling the same impact that we are. Our hippocampus, our memory function in our brain, is grabbing this from our cherub, from the child we gave birth to. I carried you in my belly. Now you're saying this to me. Oh, I can't believe I failed as a mother. So it's impacting us a lot more than it's impacting them. So that's why it's better for us to be not having this conversation. Because once we get into that, it's not equal and opposing forces. It just isn't. So good for us in our mother's group, with our partner, with our family, with our friends, with a therapist, to actually talk about, what do I need to do to breathe and shut down my shark music, to shut down what's being triggered for me. Because whatever's being triggered for you is not that little kid, that teenager in front of you. It's coming from somewhere else, because they're just all pimply and everything going, "Meh, I hate you." There's a great article that was written about teenagers, and it says, "Mom, I hate you and I wish you'd get out of my life forever. But could you just drop me and Sue down at the shops first?" So it's not equal, and it feels like it, but it isn't. The kids they bounce back really quickly, while we're a puddle on the floor feeling like we was the worst parent in the known universe. So that's a really good point. It's a really good point. Any other comments or questions?
Well, we're recently married, so we're a while away from teenagers. But,
Oh, that's why you look so happy. Oh my goodness.
we're more interested in this because we're on the youth team with each other. We look after a lot of the teenagers group. I guess it's sort of going to a bit of an extreme one, but we've sort of been interested this year in how to be there for kids that are maybe self-harming and have really, really low self-worth. And what does that look like to be a positive influence in that situation?
Ideally, they will put their phones down. They need to get off screens, because that's where they've learned. They've learned self-harm from their peers, from society. When I was growing up wasn't a thing. When in my early days of psychology wasn't a thing. So to get off their screens. We can't turn back time. What those kids need is validation. And it sounds simple. Oh, who's coming to Macca's tonight? Oh, could you help me set up for youth tonight? I really appreciate any opportunity where you can orchestrate a situation where you can thank them and praise them. Tell them that you couldn't have done this without them. It's very easy for all of the beautiful, high-functioning kids end up in those roles, and they just get reinforced over and over and over again. And the other kids, because they don't get asked to do those things, feel more and more and more and more worthless. So I'm not saying that they manage the budget, but giving them opportunities where they can succeed, whatever that is, so then you can genuinely praise them, not just, we love you, we think you're great, still say that, but it's not going to land very deeply. I think youth groups have this amazing opportunity to actually change the trajectory of life for kids, so long as we don't just lean towards the beautiful kids, the easy kids, the kids who are high functioning, because they'll do really well and we'll have the negative on the other kids, and some of them will stop coming. The other thing that can happen is the only way that I get your attention is if I'm showing you my scars. The only way anyone seems to care about me is that I turned up drunk. The only way anyone seems to be interested in me if I say that I slept in the park last night. So we still need to take care of those things. But even those kids, we need to give them opportunities where they can succeed, and we can praise them up genuinely for a successful thing that they've done. So we need to take note of that. When I have self-harming clients, I always ask if I can see the cuts, because if they need stitches, if they need steri strips, because some kids cut quite badly. And I never judge it. I just need to make sure if I need to help you with steri stitches or get to the doctor. But you also want to have opportunity whenever there's a chance to say, thanks for taking those coffee cups. Hey, did you do the dishes? You're awesome, buddy. It saves me from having to do it. It sounds inconsequential, but it's actually a real thing. There's a model of therapy called transactional analysis, and it says a direct transaction where I'm saying, you were amazing, thank you so much, really appreciate it. Now that can fall on the floor. A karom transaction is where I'm saying to you, not to you, you're overhearing, you might be in another room. Did you see what he did? He didn't wag school yesterday. I was so impressed. He turned up. He was there in class. I wouldn't say that. He did the dishes. He's just so helpful. I'm so glad that he's coming to youth group. I'm not saying it to you, but it feels like you've overheard someone speaking truth. It's a really powerful. I remember my same daughter who called me a rude word. She was my feisty, challenging, risk-taking, amazing daughter. She still is. She was giving me grief over a particular thing. I was on the phone to my dad just going, blah, blah, blah. Yes, how's the garden going and whatever. I heard this daughter walking through and I went, oh, yes, and she's amazing. She's just so incredible. I've been so proud of how she's helping out around. Okay, she's gone. Yes, anyway, back to the garden. And my dad went, what's going on? Don't worry about it, Dad. It's just a psychology thing. It's a powerful intervention. It's so simple. And sometimes it is those simple things. It's all back to noticing, connecting, being on the page, being aware. So connecting, opportunity where they can succeed, noticing and validating that. I don't know if that's helpful in your context, but it can make a difference. Any other question or comment?
I find consequences are a hard one to finding equal or appropriate consequence. Like as a kid, natural consequence. Like as a kid, I really had any consequence.
You never had consequences as a kid? Oh, sorry.
I never had a consequence. It wasn't just a smack, basically. So finding.
Don't do that to kids.
No, we're not. That's what I'm saying. So finding consequences that are appropriate.
Okay, consequences. When I'm trying to organise discipline for kids, now discipline is about training up a child. It's not about hurting a child. It's not about getting revenge. So the pain and suffering of the consequence doesn't have to equal the torment of the crime. So that's important. With our kids, we worked really hard to tailor the consequence to the individual. So for my son, it could be if you do X, Y, or Z, or because you've done X, Y, or Z, you're not going to cricket training. He lived and breathed his sport. That would be the worst consequence in the known universe. My challenging daughter, if I said, that's it, you're not going to netball, she'd be, woo, whoop, 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 whoop. So that was not a consequence for her. So hers was back in the days of boom boxes. Remember those big, carry your music? Now it's just, that was the end of the universe for her, taking her music off her. So the main thing about discipline is it interrupts what's going on. And it's an opportunity to say, this is not okay. And it might be, I wouldn't ban kids from a church event. I wouldn't ban them from someone's 18th. I wouldn't ban them from something that's a socially positive thing to do. However, there needs to be something that now has a cost to it. So they realise it's a break in what was happening. So the discipline is about training up. So it doesn't have to be 50 lashes. I'm not saying you got 50 lashes, but for you, instead of just a whack, if you had great big consequences, that's more about your parents not dealing with their stuff, because we don't need to hurt and inflict pain. It's not revenge. It's not, I'll give you something to cry about. It's not that. All that teaches kids is what horrible people you are. You know, I never want to see you again, because it's brutal. It's actually a crime in Australia to do that to a child or a teenager, anybody. So it's not our consequence. And it can be challenging to find a consequence, but it simply can be, I want you to go to your room until you can come out and tell me what you did wrong, what you should have done, and what you need to do now to repair this. Now, that's a good consequence. I used that with my kids. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have done this. I did X, I shouldn't have done it. I'm really sorry. And then what do we need to do to make it better? That invites a conversation. And I'm saying this like it's not always this simplistic. Sometimes. I was kayaking over at Mossman, and there was mum and dad and this child that got off their paddleboard, and it's floating, and the parents are going, get that paddleboard now, and the kids going, no, and I'm there on my kayak going, oh. And mum and dad are saying, if you don't get it, that's it, there's no TV. Kid, I promise I'll never watch TV again. It's still floating. And mum and dad say, get that paddleboard now. Oh, there's no more computer time. I promise I'll never use the computer. So I just went, do you want me to get the paddleboard for you? So I just got it. And mum and dad said, no, we are good parents. We are good parents. He was worried there'd be a shark there, but not there. So in that moment, when we say things like that, all we're doing is teaching our kids that we're liars, we talk rubbish, we carry on, we don't mean what we say, we're mean, we just say nasty things. So it's easy. I remember one of my daughters, my husband was I forget what she'd done. That's it, you'll be grounded for a week. I don't care. You'll be grounded for 2 weeks, whatever. You'll be grounded for a month. I'll go for it. And I was in the kitchen, I'm running down, going, stop. You can't ground her for life. We'll never cope. So it's easy when we're getting heated. It's better to stop. We need to stop. You need to go to your room. We're going to talk about this in half an hour when we all calm down. There will be a consequence. So if you can get to that place where your kids know that's what you mean, then it makes it a lot easier. And sometimes it's good to have a consequence beforehand to say, if you do X, Y, or Z, then this will be the consequence. I don't want to take your phone off you for a week, or no gaming for the weekend in the holidays. I don't want to do that. But if you keep on picking on your brother, then that will tell me that's what you want me to do. I don't want to do that, but if you do that, you know that will be the consequence, and then you follow through. So if you can change up the way the discipline's gone, it will reduce the arguing it won't eliminate it, but it will reduce it, because I don't want to be a screaming fishwife. I didn't want to be that person. I started out that way, until I realized one of the things that my mum said, "You bloody kids, I'll send you all to an orphanage." And she used to chase us with a feather duster. And I remember this day, my kids, they were little and they were, just being naughty kids. And that sentence started coming out of my mouth. And it's that shark music. When I'm dysregulated, I'm more likely to say unresolved things. So I pulled myself up on that and then started applying everything I'd learned in psychology about how to be a good parent, and it massively made a difference. Any other comments or questions?
How old should the kids be before you allow them to have a mobile phone?
Smartphone? Oh, probably, 16. New rules. I think kids need a phone because where's a phone box now? But it doesn't have to be a smartphone. And so I think the thinking now, I don't know how you take it back, but from the 10th of December, they can't be doing social media stuff. And on a smartphone, they can. And how do you police that properly? And they're smarter than you with technology. So I think it's just dangerous. I have seen a growing number of young people who've got caught up with pedophiles through phones. So I don't know. I think there's danger. We all have to have good literacy around technology. But I would probably go with the government guidelines now. So 16. But they still need a phone. It is. And they have FOMO, mad FOMO, fear of missing out. They're all addicted. That's their conduit. It's their lifeblood of communication. That's part of the problem that nobody knows how to solve that yet. Australian government is trying, and the recommendation comes from Jonathan Haidt and some of his research, which is what they're applying. But the horse has bolted. So, yeah, how do we deal with kids? There's going to be massive outroar. Kids who are, particularly this current generation, Gen Alpha, this technology has been around since before they were born now. The first generation that it's just a normal part of life. It's just a growing thing. So to say, no, you can't have it, we'll listen to the screams from your suburb when you deal with this. I wish I had some good advice around that. But no one knows yet, which is part of the problem.
Totally anti-smartphone and just like internet access. I'm looking at internet access as well, it's not just social media in my mind. But I do think that the social implications can often be sometimes assigned in different ways. We found it really helpful in our peer group at school. We actually have a pretty serious pact about not having phones for our kids. And all of our group has agreed we'll continue to have the conversation about when we think it's appropriate. There are some kids starting to go up to private schools on buses and parents introducing like trackers and other things that they can implement from a safety perspective. But having that group of people that have all agreed that we won't let our kids have phones has made a big difference, because if we felt like our child was the only one with that phone, I know that we would find that really hard.
So the challenge as well, I think that's awesome, is then also teaching them good skills for using a smartphone when that happens, and not accepting the old smartphone from a friend, neighbour, not being aware of going to Macca's to use the free Wi-Fi with the phone that you don't know they've got. There's keeping the conversation happening, because back in the day, kids could have 50 Facebook accounts and parents didn't know. Now we've got so many generations of smartphones, kids are happy to give them to each other. So it's just keeping the conversation, and I like that. If we can delay, hopefully that's going to become more the norm. The problem is the kids in this slice now who from 13 have had these devices, and now the government's saying no. And so all their peers will have that. Hopefully ongoing, it's going to be a bit more of a norm. But for a few years, I think there's going to be some challenges about how do we navigate that when kids are using smartphones and parents can't stop them, and it is illegal, but nobody knows. But you can't get into trouble. But I don't know how that's going to work. If it's illegal, why aren't I in trouble? But it's there's plenty of documents coming out now. So they've named all the groups. So it's like X or Meta or whatever they're called, Reddit, Instagram, YouTube. There's a list. Yep, all that. But the onus is on the provider, not the user. How do you do that? I think there's three ways that they work out your age. One is you tell them. The other one is they work out from your posts how old you probably are. And the third one is similar to that. That's how they work it out. And so if Instagram, they ask you your age and you say, yeah, I'm 20. And then they look at all your postings and, okay, well, that's very young and fresh posting. I forget the third one. But they're the same. They're very flaky at the moment. And maybe that'll change. We need to be on it. And I think that's the challenge, keeping that relationship with your kids and that whole connect and redirect. Let's have conversations about that. Let's talk about why the government's doing that. And yeah, the Australian government, you can get all the papers. There's enough of it out there now, but it's a month away until this brave new world starts. Sorry. Oh, yes. Sorry. Okay, we've got maybe one more question and then we're done, or comment.
He's 6'2", he's got a barricade. Now, when he's talking to his friends, they bring up his brother online. People say, who's that bloke on the show? Online. What's my question? But he's just out and Steve, he's 6'2", and so how do you pretend what's the problem, what's that hurting?
I know there's many, many challenges. I've got our very last. Yep, it's very different. Let's have a look at our very last clip and then we're done. We're done. The take-home message: connection and communication can save your child's life and much more likely to secure a really healthy and good trajectory into the future. And yes, it's really hard work, really hard work. So thank you.
Yeah, can we express our thanks to Colleen? I don't know if anyone has a rather specific question that you'd like to ask Colleen. I'm sure she's happy to stick around for a few minutes if you've got something you'd like to ask her. But thank you very much. Yeah, it's, we've been through that phase and, of course, excelled at all of this. But it's nice to get to the other side in some respects. I've still got a 17-year-old. But yeah, it was one of those things, I think, for me. It didn't start like at 13 with a horrible kind of, morphing. I know that happens for some people, but it was very much a progression, like from 8 onwards, the arguments just got more intense and more sophisticated, I think. But at the same time, our girls never sort of disappeared into themselves either, and the communication lines, which was as much about them, I think, as it was about us, they remained open and still do, despite all the grunting and the single word answers to how the day was. But yeah, it is lovely to see them get, Jocelyn's 19 now, to kind of get to the other side of that, and you kind of the relationship does change as they kind of hit that phase. Not that she ever went away from us, but it's nice when they kind of hit adulthood and the dynamic does shift.
There's hope.
There is hope. That's right. But no, thank you, Colleen, and much appreciated. So if you want to shoot through. Well, no one's holding you here, but if you've got a specific question that you want to put to Colleen, I'm sure she's happy to answer that for you.
Absolutely.
All right.
I survived. I'm still here.
Yeah. All right. Thank you all.